So here's some inactive licenses, you can use an option file to recall those. Also, you can set up the timeout variable in case you need to reclaim licenses from the client computers. You can set a specific time at default 10 or 15 minutes. That's of inactive computer. If the customer is still using the keyboard and moving the mouse around, you will not be able to reclaim those licenses. The computer has to be idle before you can reclaim those. Here's more information about the options file. You can restrict borrowing. You can set up groups and users of computers, and we do have more information there. Okay, on our Up and Ready blog site, you're welcome to visit our upandready.typepad.com website, and we do have all the step by step on a guide for both Mac, Windows, and Linux at your servers there. And now we're going to go over to Jeremy and see if there's any questions that we can answer for you guys.
All right, thank you very much, Byron. We actually do have a fair number of pretty nice questions here so far. So if anybody has any questions that you've thought of in the meantime here, go ahead and add them down in the questions section there in your GoToWebinar, and we'll see if we can get to those. We'll cover some that we've gotten here so far, though, first. So start off with, on multiple servers, which serial number do we put on the workstation? So it actually doesn't matter which serial number you use to install the software on the workstation. The server doesn't really care which serial number the software was installed with. It just sees a request for a certain license, and it goes and looks up if it has a license of that type available. I mean, someone could actually bring a computer, someone from a different company could bring their computer to your office, and as long as they point their lickpath.lic file to your server, your license server, they could pull a license even though they've installed it with a completely different serial number. So serial number only matters in the license file, really, and so it's up to the lickpath.lic file or the ADSK flex underscore license file variable as to which server it's going to look to for the license. So serial number doesn't really affect anything at all as far as that goes. Let's see, another question here. All right, so question about, can you flush the license from within LM Tools, so from the client machine? So say someone has a license checked out and you want to force the return of that license from within LM Tools. So let's say they've stepped away from their computer and it's gone to sleep or whatever, and you can't get in there and have them close it out so that you can free up a license for another person. And unfortunately, no, there isn't really a way to stop that from reactivate, or from, you can't pull the license back from within LM Tools. I guess you could probably stop the license server. If you go into the Start, Stop, Reread tab, you could do a stop server and then restart and have the new person launch it immediately. Hopefully they can get in there and pull the license before the other user reestablishes the connection, because there's a little bit of a delay to reestablish the license there, but there's really no way to force a return of the license from within LM Tools. No like return license button or anything cool like that. Would be handy, but they don't give you that option from within LM Tools. All right, there was a question about what's the difference between IPv4 and IPv6. It's actually a pretty good question here. IPv4, that's what most people are used to as far as IP addresses go. It's in the format of something like 192.168.0.1, something like that, just kind of the normal number, dot number, dot number, dot number. And of course, we're running out of those. Everybody has computers all over the place. Everything has its own IP address. So a few years ago, they started phasing in IPv6, and IPv6 uses a hex address instead of just the regular numerals, so it can have tons, way more addresses than IPv4 can, but with LM tools, you need to have the IPv6 version on installed if you have IPv6 enabled, and most of the newer versions of Windows by default will have IPv6 enabled. There's ways to disable it in Windows so that you could just use the IPv4 version of LM tools, but if you want to have it enabled or just don't want to go through the work of disabling it, then you'd install both initially the IPv4 one and then install the IPv6 on top of that. So IPv6 is kind of an update to the IPv4 one, so you install the IPv4 one first and then you install the IPv6 one second. And just in case you're not sure how to tell if you have IPv6 enabled, a good way to do it is if you're on your licensed server, open up a command prompt, just go to start in the search box, type CMD, that'll bring up a command prompt, and then type in ping and then the name of your license server. And if that returns a normal address in the 192.168.0.1 format, then you just have IPv4 and you have IPv6 disabled. If it gives you some weird long thing, a bunch of letters and numbers with colons in between them, or even if it just gives you 2 colons, sometimes it'll show just 2 colons without an actual address there. That means you have IPv6. So that's a good way to test that and know if you need to install the IPv6 version of LM tools. Let's see, and then a couple questions about borrowing licenses in LM tools. Now there is a borrowing tab in LM tools, but we don't use it for Autodesk licenses. Other vendors that use LM tools use that for some of their stuff, but it's not supported with Autodesk licenses. So there's really no good way to control borrowing from within LM tools itself. You can see who has licenses borrowed if you go in and do a perform status inquiry on the status tab. It'll list all the users in there who have licenses checked out, and it will have the word linger in parentheses at the end of the line for anybody who has a borrowed license in there. So you can see who has licenses borrowed, and so that at least lets you see who has them, so you can contact them to ask them to return them if you need to, but there's really no way to force it to return the license. We at Autodesk Support, we do have a way that we can kind of clear those out. So if you ever run into a situation where, say someone's borrowed a license for 6 months and their computer gets stolen, or they're out of the office for a long period of time, you really need to have a license returned, you can give us a call or open a case with us, and we can get in there and clear out the borrowing. It clears out the borrowing for everybody, so everybody who had it borrowed will no longer have it borrowed. But at least that is a way to get licenses returned, but there's really no way for you to do it yourself, unfortunately. And had a question about, here's a scenario here. I have 2 servers. I want to install 5 licenses of AutoCAD 2016 on both servers. If server 1 is down, client will take a license on server 2. So it acts like a redundant server, but only have 2 servers. Can I do that? And sort of, yes. I mean, if you have 5 licenses of AutoCAD on each server, that means you need to own 10 licenses. So this would be a distributed model in this case. Redundant model requires 3 servers to set up, so you couldn't do it with just 2 servers. It would choke when you tried starting the server, starting up the thing. It would say it couldn't establish the quorum, the necessary 3 servers in there. So this would be a distributed model, so you'd have half of your licenses on one server and half on the other. You could then configure the either the lic files or the ADSK flex license file variable on the workstations to point to both of those servers. So whichever one was listed first, it would be the first one it would try to pull a license from, and then whichever was listed second, it would roll over to that one if there's none available on the first server. So in that case, yeah, if one server goes down, you'd still have the 5 available on your second server. So not really a redundant model, it's a distributed model, so you have half your license on each one, but it sort of works as a redundant one where at least you're not losing all of your licenses if you have one server that goes down. All right, move on to more. Sorry, I'm through these quick because we have a lot of questions and we got about 10 minutes left here. So I want to see if we can get in as many as we can. So sorry if I'm talking a little fast here. Let's see, another question. We have 5 AutoCAD and 2 Building Design Suite premium licenses. can users have access to AutoCAD from both AutoCAD and Building Design Suite Premium? So yes, actually, so this will follow the cascading sequence. If someone launches AutoCAD, it's going to at first look for an AutoCAD license. If all 5 of those licenses are already being used, it will then cascade down and use the Building Design Suite Premium license if there's a Building Design Suite Premium license available. Now, if someone already has another product from within the suite open, then when they launch AutoCAD, it'll just continue to use that suite license. And likewise, if they have AutoCAD open, and then it's, it would by default try to get an AutoCAD license. So if they have AutoCAD open using an AutoCAD license, but then they also launch a product from Building Design Suite, it's going to upgrade the license to the Building Design Suite license. It'll release that AutoCAD license back to make it available for the next person to use. However, it's not smart enough where if that user then closes the other product from the suite and just has AutoCAD open, it won't go back down to the AutoCAD license. It'll keep that suite license until they close AutoCAD also and completely release their license. Then they could relaunch AutoCAD and it would pull the AutoCAD license. So it upgrades to a higher license, but it doesn't downgrade to a lower one automatically. Let's see, what else? A lot of them coming in here, so we'll see how many we can get through. So it's a question about whether the products follow the cascading orders from now on. Yeah, they do follow the cascading sequence, and there's a similar question here. Does license date matter in the cascading suite sequence? And it can. The software should always try to follow the cascading sequence, but if you have licenses that have different issue dates in your license file, sometimes that can cause the software to pull a newer license, one of them that's whichever license is issued most recently, even if that license is lower on the cascading sequence than the older license. So if you have like an AutoCAD license and a Building Design Suite license, and then you launch AutoCAD and your suite license has been issued more recently than the AutoCAD license, it could potentially pull the suite license instead of the AutoCAD license. So always a good idea if you add any more licenses to your license file, just keep the same issue date for all of them. So you need to reissue your old licenses also, and just kind of create a new license file at that point. It doesn't always cause problems, certainly, but definitely best practice. Try to have all the licenses in your license file have the same issue date in there. Let me see what else we got in here. Looks like we had a question about restricting the license borrowing period, and provided a link to it there in the chat if having the questions, if anyone's interested. So that's really more, you'd create an options file and set up like a group or whoever. You actually do it to so it applies to everybody. You would need to set up a group. I mean, there's a borrow command in there that you would create, but gets into more detail than we really want to cover in this webinar. We actually have a webinar about options files specifically, so if you go to our YouTube channel, you can find a recording of one of the previous webinars we did regarding options files, and that would cover that exactly, all the stuff in detail. All right, let's see here. And question, does the license file also carry info for the network render node, i.e. mental ray node info? Yes, it does. When you get, say, a Maya license, it comes with a certain number of mental ray licenses also, so those just automatically get generated when you, when either we generate the license file for you, or if you go into registeroncetos.com and do it yourself, it'll automatically add their network render licenses in there as well. So all that stuff gets generated at once, and you just throw it all into your license file. All right, we got a few more minutes here. Let's see if there's some more questions we can go through. A question about using register once. Yeah, if for whatever reason you're not able to create your license file on the Register Once site, you can just call our registration activation team. We posted the number there in the questions panel, so you can find the number there. It's 866-681-84359. Obviously, in a toll-free number. So you can just call them and they can generate the license file for you if you need it. All right, question about can we read the license details from a client machine, like how many licenses are issued and how many of them are in use? You actually can. If you install LM tools on the workstation, there's a way that you can point it to the license server. Let me see if I can find, we have some instructions up on Up and Ready site, how you can check the status from a client system. I'm going to see if I can find that link, and I'll post that in the answers if I can find it. If not, I'll post it up on the our box folder. I'll post it there, and we'll see if we can get that link to you for how to check the status from a workstation. All right, we can fit a few more in here. I got a question on can you use laptops out of the network? So you can, but you need to borrow a license before you go. Unless you have VPN, you could connect to VPN and then pull a license. But if you're going to be out of the office with no network connectivity to your license server, you can borrow the license. So, you know, in most of the products, you just launch the product on the laptop before you leave the office. If you go up to the top right corner of the, you know, say AutoCAD, there's a little question mark, and just to the right of that is a down arrow. Click on that, go to About Autodesk, AutoCAD, whatever version it is, and then click on the Product Information button. There you'll see a Borrow License button. So you click on Borrow License, it pops up a calendar. You select whatever date you want to borrow it until, and then that borrows the license. So that stores the license information in the Windows registry on that laptop, and then it shows in LM Tools on the server that that license is borrowed out to that user on the laptop. So it'll be unavailable for anyone else to use until either the borrow period expires, or you know, if you come back early, you can manually return the borrowed license when you get back in the office if you don't need it anymore at that point. Every time you launch the software, when you have a borrowed license, it pops up a little window telling you that your license is borrowed, and you know, just so you know that you're using a borrowed license, and don't forget about it and keep it borrowed for, you know, months at a time without realizing it. So that gives you the option to return it on that little window that pops up when you launch the software. Let's see here. Got a few more questions. Getting pretty low on timer, so I think you can fit in maybe one or two more here. There's a question about saying this, the license server up on Linux, and we actually do have a recording of a webinar that covers that, specifically covers Linux. I think it's Linux and Mac both in the same one, but it might be two separate ones, I can't remember. But anyway, it's posted there in the questions. If you happen to be doing your license server on Linux, we do have that covered for you. We might be able to fit in one more here. It looks like we just hit 9:30, so I think we probably should end it at this point. Looks like we got most of the questions answered, so that's good. It's a few that we might not be able to get to, but at least we got quite a few of them answered. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining. We had a really good turnout, so good to see. And like I said, we have the slide deck up here at autodesk.box.com/APAC Up and Ready IQ2. And so if you'd like the slide deck, it's nice links to the little step-by-step guide on our Up and Ready site for getting the LM tools set up and configured and all that. So that's pretty handy to have. Go ahead and get it at that address, and we'll see if we can get a few more answers to some of these questions posted up there also. Let's see, anything else? Well, I'd just like to thank you all for joining us. Any last words, Byron?
Thank you very much for coming, and we'll be posting the recording tomorrow, and we'll continue answering your questions here that we haven't answered. But visit our YouTube channel. I put the link up there, and also feel free to use this slide deck for your own purposes as well. Thank you very much for coming.
Great. Thanks, everyone.